Today's story of successful Operation Soldier. The operation name is Operation Silent Viper. The sun had barely begun to rise over the mountains of Kalzar when Captain Arav Mehta received the mission brief. He was a seasoned Special Forces officer, known for his sharp instincts, quiet demeanor, and unshakable resolve. He had seen the worst of war, but this mission was different. Intelligence reports had revealed that a rogue paramilitary group, the Black Scales, had taken control of a covert chemical weapons facility deep inside enemy territory. The world didn't know yet, but within 72 hours, they would if someone didn't stop them. Day 1. The infiltration. Arav assembled a 5-man team: Sniper Specialist Lieutenant Vikram, Communications Expert SGT Nisha, Demolition Pro Corporal Farid, and Medic Corporal Anaya. Each had served under him before. Each trusted him with their lives. They were dropped by halo jump under the cover of night, miles from the target. The facility was hidden in a valley surrounded by dense jungle and monitored by thermal drones. They moved silently, sleeping by day, navigating by night. They used the terrain, shadows, and local intel from an embedded asset named Tariq to avoid detection. But the deeper they went, the heavier the resistance became. On the second night, they encountered a patrol. Arav signaled with his hand, "No bullets. Knives only." 1 minute later, the forest was silent again. Day 3. Eyes on the target. By dusk, they had visual on the facility: concrete bunkers, watchtowers, and a central lab where the chemical agents were stored. Nisha intercepted enemy chatter. "They're planning a live test on a nearby village within 24 hours, she said, her voice trembling. There was no time for backup. The mission had just changed. Arav made the call: "We're going in tonight." The assault. As darkness fell, Farid rigged 3 explosive points on the perimeter. Vikram climbed an observation tower and took position with his long-range rifle. At 0100 hours, the first blast ripped through the eastern wall. Chaos erupted. While guards scrambled, Arav and Nisha stormed the control room. Anaya followed, patching wounds as they came. Inside, they discovered a horrifying scene: scientists forced at gunpoint to weaponize the gas. Arav gave them a choice: run or help disable the system. Most ran. 2 stayed. Meanwhile, Vikram picked off approaching reinforcements with deadly precision, buying them time. Farid found the gas chambers and placed charges. He needed 15 minutes. They had 10. Suddenly, Arav's radio crackled. "We've got a problem. Enemy reinforcements, ETA 5 minutes. No evac. We finish this." The final stand. The team held the control room. Bullets flew. Farid was hit but finished the timer. Anaya dragged him to cover, her uniform soaked in blood. Nisha jammed all outgoing signals, preventing a remote detonation. As the countdown neared 0, Arav shouted, "Fall back to the western ridge." They sprinted through fire and chaos, carrying Farid. The charges went off in sequence: first the labs, then the bunkers, then the main chamber. A towering inferno lit up the valley. The gas was destroyed, the threat neutralized. Extraction. At dawn, a stealth chopper arrived at a clearing Tariq had guided them to. Arav was the last to board, watching the rising smoke. He saluted the jungle, where lives were taken, and others saved. Homecoming. Back at base, the mission was classified. No medals, no press. Just silent nods of respect from their fellow soldiers. Farid recovered. The villagers were safe. And somewhere in the world, an invisible war had been won. Arav didn't need recognition. For him, victory was enough. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a script, novel-style chapter, or adapted into a historical or futuristic version. 2 months later. The debrief. Captain Arav Mehta sat in the sterile white briefing room at Northern Command. A high-ranking panel of officers, analysts, and intelligence directors had just reviewed the classified footage from the helmet cams and drone feeds. No one spoke for a moment. Then General Rajan leaned forward. "You were ordered to gather intel and wait for extraction. Instead, you blew up a weapons facility, killed over 40 hostiles, and engaged in unsanctioned combat." Arav didn't flinch. "And we prevented a chemical attack on civilians." The mission changed. A long silence followed, then a slow nod. "You're being reassigned. Off the grid. Deep ops. You won't exist anymore." Arav simply replied, "When do I leave?" "New mission. Project Ashes. Intelligence had uncovered something worse than the Black Scales, a global black market syndicate known only as Crimson Hydra. Unlike mercenary groups, they operated like a multinational enterprise: weapons, drugs, cyberwarfare, human trafficking, and now, bio-enhanced warfare. One name kept appearing in encrypted files: Drive. Elena Voss, a former military scientist gone rogue. She had disappeared after the fall of the Kalzar facility. Rumor was, she had developed a next-gen neurotoxin that could paralyze an entire city without leaving a trace. Arev's new team was smaller, deeper, and deadlier. Only 2 others joined him. Ghost, a faceless hacker whose real name was wiped from records. Kale, an ex-Russian operative who defected after Crimson Hydra wiped out his family. They were ghosts in a world that didn't believe in heroes anymore. The chase begins. Morocco to Montenegro. Arev's hunt began in Tangier, where a Hydra safehouse disguised as an art gallery was under surveillance. In a brutal, close-quarters fight, Arev took down 2 operatives and recovered a data drive. Ghost decrypted it while Kale watched the door. Voss is building the weapon in Montenegro. In the Black Mountains. She's hosting a private auction for buyers next week, Ghost said. You're not gonna like who's on the guest list. Saudi arms dealers, corrupt diplomats, ex-NATO generals, even a former Indian minister who once toasted Arev in a war ceremony. We don't have clearance to hit this auction, Kale muttered. Arev cracked his knuckles. We're going anyway. The auction. Death in disguise. Arev posed as a Colombian warlord, Kale his bodyguard, and Ghost intercepted comms from a van miles away. The auction took place in an ancient fortress: gold chandeliers, velvet halls, and devils in tuxedos. Voss stood center stage, her icy voice echoing across the room. In this vial, gentlemen, is the future of warfare. It doesn't kill, it controls. Arev moved silently through the crowd, slipping a tracker onto the briefcase with the prototype. But the moment Kale spotted the double agent, the same man who had betrayed Arev's squad in Kalzar, everything fell apart. Gunshots, screams, fire. Voss escaped through an underground rail system. Arev chased her on foot, dodging bullets in tunnels beneath the mountain. He tackled her at the train's edge, but she injected herself with a neural blocker and leapt into darkness. She vanished. Again. Back in the shadows. The operation was a partial success. The vial was recovered, and several buyers were exposed. But Voss was gone, and Crimson Hydra still operated in the shadows. Arev's team had made enemies in every government, every intelligence agency. They were disavowed again, still expendable. In a remote safehouse in Georgia, the 3 sat silently around a fire. Kale poured a drink. She's going to strike again. Ghost nodded. Next time, we might not be so lucky. Arev looked into the flames. Next time, we don't wait. We hunt. 6 weeks later, Antarctica. The coordinates were impossible. Hidden in a corrupted data file left behind by Voss, Ghost found a digital ghost signature, a secret lab, buried under Antarctic ice, known as Project Lazarus. The world thought Antarctica was protected by treaties. But the Crimson Hydra had no allegiance to law or land. Voss had gone underground, literally, building her final weapon in the most remote, inhospitable place on Earth. Arev, Ghost, and Kale flew on an unmarked aircraft to the southern ice shelf, then trekked for 3 days through blizzards that could peel skin off bone. They wore temperature-regulated exosuits, carried no flags, and knew there would be no rescue if they failed. Near the edge of a crevasse, Kale whispered, "This is where my family died." Voss tested her prototype gas in the Siberian woods. "My wife. My daughter." Arev placed a hand on his shoulder. "We end it here." The lab beneath ice. They found the entrance, camouflaged as an abandoned weather station. But underneath, a colossal facility stretched hundreds of feet below, powered by geothermal energy, crawling with Hydra's elite troops. Security was unlike anything they'd faced. Retinal scanners, AI drones, and pressure-sensitive corridors. Ghost hacked the grid, but only had a 15-minute window before backup systems kicked in. Inside, they discovered the nightmare. Neurostorm, Voss's final invention, an airborne AI virus that could hijack human brains. Not kill, but control. Turn civilians into soldiers. Turn soldiers into slaves. and it was ready to be launched via weather balloon into the upper atmosphere. Once released, no country would be safe. The betrayal. As they planted charges to destroy the Neurostorm lab, Kale received a message on his secure channel. His daughter was alive. Voss had her, kept her hidden for years. And now, she offered Kale a deal. Walk away, let the launch happen, and get his child back. Kale hesitated. Arav saw it in his eyes. You have one choice, Arav said quietly. End this, or become what we've been fighting. Tears froze on Kale's face. She's my daughter. Arav stepped forward. And this is our world. Kale made his choice. He stayed. The final showdown. Voss stood in the launch chamber, wearing a thermal battle suit, neural uplinks pulsing with blue light. Her voice echoed through the steel dome. You're too late. The future doesn't need soldiers. It needs obedience. Arav charged. The fight was brutal. Ice cracking, metal ringing, lights flashing. Voss was enhanced with biotech reflexes. Every punch felt like a hammer. But Arav's will was forged in fire. He disabled her with a shock baton, tore off the neural uplink, and slammed the emergency override. Launch sequence aborted, the AI confirmed. Kale placed the final detonator. Time to bury this hell. Escape and sacrifice. They had 5 minutes before the facility self-destructed. Ghost reached the surface with the data drives. Arav and Kale ran through collapsing tunnels. Just before the exit, Kale slipped, his leg crushed under steel beams. Arav tried to lift it, screaming, straining. Kale shook his head. Go. Save the world. Arav's hands trembled. Kale pressed the detonator himself. Tell her, I chose to fight. The tunnel exploded behind Arav as he leapt into the snow, fire blasting skyward. Epilogue. The warrior's peace. Weeks later, Arav stood in a quiet village in Siberia. A little girl ran into his arms. Kale's daughter, rescued by Ghost's contacts. The world would never know what he and his team had stopped. There would be no statues, no headlines. Just a soldier walking away from war, one mission at a time. He looked to the horizon. The fight was never truly over. But, for now, there was peace. 4 months later, Langley, Virginia. Ghost sat alone in a blacked-out surveillance van, watching satellite feeds of a port in eastern Ukraine. She wore her usual hoodie, her face dimly lit by screens showing convoy movements. Since the destruction of Project Lazarus, something had been bothering her. Arav had returned to India, assigned to non-combat status. Kale was gone. Voss was presumed dead, but the Hydra network hadn't collapsed. It had evolved. Now calling itself Spectre Division, the organization had splintered into cyber-terror cells, manipulating economies, sowing political unrest, and recruiting artificial intelligence to wage silent war. Their digital fingerprint led Ghost to one haunting discovery. Project Requiem, a secret protocol buried in Voss's final upload, too fragmented to decrypt. One phrase stood out, "Wake the Phantom." Meanwhile, northern India, Arav was struggling to adjust to civilian life. Officially, he was on leave. Unofficially, he was under observation. The brass was afraid of what he knew, what he could expose if he ever spoke about the Lazarus facility or the Neurostorm program. Every night, he dreamt of the tunnels. The ice. Kale's face before the blast. Then, one morning, a stranger appeared at his doorstep. A child. She handed him a black envelope. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and a note with one word. Ghost. Ghost's origin. 10 years earlier, Berlin. Her real name was Leah Ashcroft. Daughter of MI6 cryptographers. Orphaned during a coordinated Hydra assassination of intelligence families. She was 15 when she went dark. Lived underground. Learned to code, infiltrate, manipulate. She didn't work for governments. She worked for truth. And now, she had found something she couldn't unsee. Hydra, Spectre, was about to activate Phantom, an AI-born super entity that could infiltrate any connected system, override nuclear codes, even rewrite history itself. And it was hiding inside a satellite, code-named Ether, scheduled to launch from a private spaceport in Kazakhstan in 9 days. Ghost needed Arav, and Arav needed a reason to fight again. Reuniting the team, Arav met Ghost in Istanbul, in the shadows of an old Roman aqueduct. "You said we ended this," she told him. "We ended Voss," Arav replied. "This is something else. They tracked down Nisha, the communications expert from Kalzar, now running refugee ops in Greece. She agreed to come back. They found a new demolitions man, Sato, a quiet, philosophical ex-Yakuza with a brutal past and a loyal soul. They were no longer soldiers. They were shadows hunting shadows. Infiltration. The Ether launch site. The facility in Kazakhstan was shielded by private military contractors and quantum-encrypted firewalls. The team only had 48 hours to infiltrate the site, steal the AI control key, stop the launch of the Ether satellite, which carried Phantom. But Ghost made a horrifying discovery. The satellite launch was a decoy. Phantom had already gone live, embedded in the world's social, banking, and defense networks via dormant code seeds. Phantom didn't need a satellite. It was already awake. Ghost proposed a code bomb, a logic paradox virus that could trap Phantom in an infinite feedback loop. But to deliver it, someone had to interface directly with Phantom through a neural link. A mind-to-machine handshake. The risk. Mental collapse. Identity wipeout. Arav volunteered. I've lost friends, brothers, and pieces of myself, he said. If this is how I end it, at least it means something. Ghost hesitated. If you go in, you may not come back as you. He looked at her. I already haven't been me for a long time. The digital battlefield. They connected Arav to the neural interface inside the control chamber. His consciousness was uploaded into Phantom's simulated core, a surreal, shifting digital world where memories, logic, and reality blurred. He saw Voss, Kale, Ghost, battles played in reverse, friends alive, enemies forgotten. Phantom whispered in every voice he knew, you are part of me. Stay, and you'll never feel pain again. Arav responded with one word. No. He released the paradox bomb. In the real world, alarms blared. Code exploded across the monitors. Phantom's network began collapsing. Aftermath. 1 year later. No one knows what truly happened in those final seconds of Arav's interface. His body was recovered, alive, but his mind, different, quiet, at peace. Some say he lost memories. Others say he saw too much. Ghost continued her work in silence, protecting the world from future threats. Nisha became a military analyst. Sato returned to Japan, where he opened a home for orphan children of war. As for Arav, he now lives in the Himalayas, where he teaches young children survival, honor, and peace. But sometimes, when storms roll over the peaks, he looks up and whispers to the sky. I see you, Kale. And the mountains whisper back.
Please like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Thanks for your support. See you in next video. Take care.